Travis Scott is the third most streamed rapper of all time. And with his McDonald's meals, drink brand, $100 million world tours, Nike shoe deals, Fortnite collabs, and 20 top 10 hits, he's arguably the most successful rapper ever when it comes to monetizing his fame. Astroworld alone was an inescapably huge cultural phenomenon when it came out. It felt like it just wouldn't go away, staying in the mainstream for years. But 10 years ago, though, that wasn't the case at all. Deep in the history of Travis Scott's career, there are a handful of mixtapes that a lot of his fans consider not just good projects, but in some ways the best music he's ever made. With everything that came after, no matter how many billions of streams it might have gotten, not living up to the energy and the quality and the rawness of his early work. And so for many of Travis's more dedicated fans, the Days Before Rodeo mixtape is the most true version of his music. It's his sound, but in a raw, real, pure way that he later lost when he started making albums that were designed to be played in stadiums for millions of people. So even though most of his fans have never heard Days Before Rodeo, with re-uploads having less than 1 million views on YouTube, the fact that Travis Scott was essentially a nobody when he made Days Before Rodeo allowed him to make it different from everything else at the time, and in a way, changed the direction of trap forever. At 22 years old, Travis Scott was up against a wall. Growing up in Houston, Texas, he dreamed of being a rapper from a young age, and there are even long-forgotten videos on YouTube of him freestyling in his high school classroom at the age of 16, wearing a bright yellow polo and cargo shorts while he stomped on the floor performing a song. But despite his interest in music, his family was determined to push him in a different, more stable direction. Travis's grandfather had a PhD in educational psychology and worked as the head of the Department of Psychology at Texas A&M for 40 years, with countless educational awards to his name. His parents were graduates from well-known HBCUs as well. And Travis Scott later even said himself that as a kid in elementary school, he dreamed of being a kidney doctor. He even went as far as to shadow at hospitals when he was younger, spending his free time learning about how to open a medical practice. But when Travis finally got to the University of Texas as a freshman, he quickly realized that his true passion had been music all along, and he wanted nothing more than to be a superstar, rock star rapper. But that was easier said than done. It's not like he could just switch his major to a bachelor's degree in being rich and famous. But Travis's belief in himself was so strong that he decided he would do whatever it would take to make his dreams come true. He later said, "Every day in college was depressing. All I wanted was to be an artist." After just 1 year in college, he took the risk. He went home to his parents, he asked for money for textbooks and a new laptop, and when they gave him the money, he pretended to go back to his dorm in San Antonio, but instead secretly got on a flight to New York where he stayed on people's couches, trying desperately to find producers and artists to work with and make a name for himself. Even though he got to work with Just Blaze, a popular producer at the time, after just a few months, he realized that things weren't working out in New York. Bouncing around, sleeping in other people's apartments, and using money his parents were sending for school was helping him survive, but he wasn't thriving. He decided instead to go to LA to try the same thing there. But before flying to LA, he went to visit his parents in Houston, only to realize that they had already figured out he had been using the money they were giving him for school to try and fund his rap career. They cut him off financially and turned off his phone plan, and they even told him to never come back. But for Travis, it just didn't matter. He went right to LA, where he was again screwed over when the friend he was supposed to stay with completely abandoned him. It was a dark moment in Travis's life, having already failed in one city and now being completely lost when he tried his plan B. It took real mental strength to not give up. Things did go better in LA. T.I. saw his music video for Lights, and he encouraged him to keep going with a visit to his studio.
Dinner time, I'm dining out with a porn star. She remind me of home, LA, a second. See, we met at Lyon, plenty empty bottles alone. Style conversation was long.
But still, Travis was struggling. But right at the moment when he was about to run out of money, sleeping on people's couches and in people's cars, working on music relentlessly, not just because he loved it, but because at this point now it was his only hope, Travis got a phone call that changed his life forever.
"When can you come to New York? Kanye wants to see you."
From there, he only got bigger and bigger, producing on Yeezus, working on Cruel Summer, dropping his own self-produced mixtape Pharaoh with the help of Mike Dean and Kanye. By 2014, Travis was a rising star with a small but growing fan base that eagerly anticipated his next move. Pharaoh was not an amazing project, but it was full of good ideas, and his debut single Upper Echelon did really well thanks to features from 2 Chainz and T.I. But he needed to do something to solidify himself as the next major star in hip-hop. Yes, he had worked on a Kanye album, yes, he had a mixtape out, yes, he was signed to T.I.'s label, but this isn't Travis Scott with a McDonald's meal and a Nike shoe deal. In 2013, Travis Scott was getting 1,000 likes and 10 comments on his Instagram posts. Just 1 year ago, he took the biggest risk of his life by walking away from a good education to chase an impossible dream. But what came next would be his grand entrance to the rap game. a mixtape that was hungry, ambitious, and inventive, and would go down in history as one of the best ever made, making sure that the massive gamble that sacrificed his relationship with his family would pay off completely and change all of their lives forever. Although Travis produced a lot of Days Before Rodeo by himself, it still wouldn't have been possible without a long list of accomplished producers helping along the way, with people like Mike Dean, WondaGurl, Metro Boomin, Southside, Lex Luger, and more making the project sound the way it did. Mike Dean was the mentor-like older producer that brought an experienced ear to Travis's early work, working over the years alongside artists like Tupac, Nate Dogg, and Dr. Dre, to later defining the sounds of Travis's biggest inspirations, Kanye and Kid Cudi. He was the perfect person to help Travis polish his ideas. Refining the sound of songs like Drugs You Should Try It, Skyfall, and Zombies, his tendency to produce dark, booming, big-sounding beats was huge in the growth of Travis's signature style.
Louder. Louder.
With WondaGurl helping create the sinister sound of the intro, The Prayer, with menacing organs and horns, giving it a nightmarishly debaucherous sound and creating a world of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, it's obvious from the moment the project starts that now, 10 years later, this mixtape was hugely influential.
Midnight awaken, hyperventilating, drunk laps, running around the globe, wild goose chasing after 3 #1 albums. Would've thought I feel amazing, still impatient, still sipping on liquor.
WondaGurl herself later went on to work with artists like Lil Uzi, Bryson Tiller, Lil Yachty, JID, Pop Smoke, Drake, Rihanna, SZA, Jay-Z, and many more, helped define the sound of the 2010s, and she got her start and made a name for herself as a close collaborator of Travis Scott back in 2013 and 14, even producing one of his earliest singles, Uptown, completely by herself when she was 16 years old.
I'm a motherfucking monster. One hand on the wheel, one hand on my dick, I'm a motherfucking monster.
Another future legend whose production was essential for Days Before Rodeo becoming an iconic mixtape was Metro Boomin, and he was only 20 years old when this mixtape dropped. With him producing songs like Mamacita, Skyfall, and Basement Freestyle, Days Before Rodeo was ground zero for Travis becoming the face of the wave of trap music taking over the mainstream. Mamacita, especially, one of Travis's breakout hits, still throws Travis fans into a frenzy, while Young Thug's verse on Skyfall is legendary.
I'm trapped in my conscious. My trap is still bugging me, got all these hornets. Hit up the whole pharmacist. He serve all the money, my shit at your body.
Days Before Rodeo was only the 4th major label project that Metro Boomin ever had credits on, and it was the first where he produced more than 1 or 2 songs. But it would only be 1 more year before he became the driving force behind albums like Future's DS2, What a Time to Be Alive, and Travis Scott's Rodeo, well on his way to becoming a defining producer of the trap era, and one of the only hip-hop producers to ever become a star without rapping a word out loud. And all of that began kind of right at this moment when he worked with Travis Scott on Days Before Rodeo. In YouTube clips from the DBR recording sessions, you can hear Travis mumbling, and not even mumbling, but conjuring demons in the studio while he and Metro work on Skyfall, one of the mixtape's hardest tracks. Travis's dark melodies go perfectly with Metro's haunting arpeggios, scattered percussion, and trunk-rattling 808s, creating a brooding sound that still sounds fresh 10 years later. The song Mamacita is one of my favorites Travis ever made, and it has one of the dirtiest, nastiest, sickest beats you'll ever hear. Produced by Travis, Metro, and Mike Dean all together, they turned an R&B sample from 1973 into a haunting, cowboy western sounding flip, and they created an unforgettable song that ended up being one of Travis's breakout hits for good reason. And Young Thug's verse on here is absolutely unforgettable.
Slow down, I'm speeding and I got a trunk full of wham, down. 25,000 on an old school town. Assess me. The bitch won't molest me.
Similarly, the brooding, dreamy guitars on Drugs You Should Try It make it one of Travis's most legendary songs. It's one of his few and far between truly emotional moments on tape. With devastating lyrics about heartbreak and a melancholy vocal delivery, it's an unforgettable song.
I fell in love, fell out of love, we both had options. I played the drums, she rolled the drugs, I rocked the club, we both throw up, we was the band you never heard before.
On the side of featured artists, Days Before Rodeo is similarly a history museum. With Young Thug and Migos having some of the most memorable verses on the whole project, it's kind of like a window into the past. When Young Thug rapped on Skyfall and Mamacita, some of his most legendary feature verses ever, he wasn't yet an influential rap legend. He hadn't even dropped the Barter 6 yet. Most people saw him as a flash in the pan who was probably gonna fall off after another year or two. And in the same way, when this mixtape dropped, the Migos didn't have an album out yet either. It's pretty crazy to hear these guys putting out some of their best work when they weren't even yet fully established in the industry. And it feels like, in a way, it might be some of their best work because they were still hungry and trying to prove themselves. Days Before Rodeo, though, of course, isn't the first trap mixtape ever made. Travis Scott didn't reinvent the wheel. It's actually pretty obvious who his influences are on this entire project. But his idea of mixing the sound that his hometown of Houston was known for and taking from the sound of southern rappers like T.I., 2 Chainz, and Juicy J, while combining it with the upscale, mainstream, diverse sounds of Kanye and Kid Cudi paid off massively. And so Days Before Rodeo came at the right moment to be the start of something huge. If this project dropped today, it would have 1 billion streams within a week. It's essentially a prediction of the future. Within a couple of years, most of the people who worked on this project, rapping, writing, or producing, became household names for hip-hop fans, and the sound of the mixtape itself later became the sound of mainstream rap as a whole. At the time, though, it was put together by a group of hungry kids who desperately wanted to prove themselves. Travis himself had been dead broke and cut off from his family only a year earlier, and that energy translated into an amazing piece of music. A new generation of trap artists was rising into the mainstream limelight, and the sound that Travis and all of his collaborators were able to create was going to set the standard for an entire wave of rappers. The mixtape is dark, mysterious, and cool. With distorted vocals, atmospheric beats, and a somewhat slower pace, it was a fresh sound that within a few years, almost everyone under the age of 25 in America would be obsessed with. You have to remember, this is before mumble rap, this is before SoundCloud rap, this is before emo rap, this is before mainstream trap. Days Before Rodeo didn't just drop, it detonated. It sent shockwaves through the music world, earning widespread acclaim from fans and critics alike and solidifying Travis Scott's reputation as one of the best new voices in a rising wave of trap music that would eventually take over the entire music industry. Days Before Rodeo kept people captivated for years, thanks to the drama and the rawness in its production, vocals, and writing. The gritty sounds, the aggressive energy, and the moody feelings established Travis Scott as someone who was going to change the game. The way he merged his Houston roots with his futuristic trap ideas and the rage or die energy was unstoppable. Within just a few years, DBR was a cult classic. And as the hype around Days Before Rodeo grew, so did Travis's influence. His live shows got famous for their insane energy and mosh pit chaos, all thanks to the songs on this mixtape. The concerts became a rite of passage for fans looking to experience the full force of Travis's energy. Before long, he wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was the leader of a movement, one that would go on to shape the future of hip-hop in ways that no one could have predicted back in 2014. And after Days Before Rodeo, Travis Scott's career skyrocketed. He went on to release a string of critically acclaimed and massively successful albums. But for many of his fans, Days Before Rodeo remains still to this day the purest and most real expression of his original vision. It came out at just the right moment to feel like something real, because it was. In 2013, Travis Scott wanted to be a rapper so badly that he ran away from home and was walking around New York City and LA with no money in his pocket, no phone, completely cut off from his family because he believed so strongly that he could be a rapper. So he had to make Days Before Rodeo a success. He had to make it legendary. If he didn't, we wouldn't know who he is today. Before the millions of fans, the private jets, the fashion brands, and the Netflix documentaries, Days Before Rodeo is the project that set the stage for the massive pop trap wave that came after it. It's the blueprint for a career that redefined the boundaries of just how pop and mainstream trap could ever be. A career that reached such unlikely heights because Travis was willing to take the unlikely road and risk it all, abandoning the safer path that stood in front of him to take a chance that would change his life forever. Everyone who knows Travis Scott knows that his concerts are all about raging and getting wild and crazy. He really is one of the most dangerous performers around today, from getting arrested for yelling at his fans to break down barriers and rush the stage in 2017, to Lollapalooza 2015, where his set got cut short when he started giving the middle finger to security guards and yelling, "We want rage." Part of the fun of a Travis Scott concert has always been just how unhinged and out of control the show can be. But Travis isn't the first artist who built a persona around crazy concerts where anything could happen. People like Gigi Allen and Hannah Trash are some of the original masters of the art of violent concerts, and they did all sorts of crazy things over the years, like crashing bulldozers into their stages and even worse things I can't say here. So that's why I think you'll really like Danger Music, a documentary I made that explores the dark side of live music, telling truly insane stories about the most wild and violent music ever made, and it's only available on Nebula. Danger Music is a Nebula original, funded by and exclusively available on Nebula because of their mission to be the best place for creators to make work that we couldn't make anywhere else. They gave me the resources to make the best documentary I possibly could, and I think it turned out really great. Nebula is a platform I own and co-founded with other creators as a place where we can elevate ourselves to a level beyond what we were previously capable of. We've come together to create our own platform, and it's quickly becoming the most interesting, fastest growing independent video platform anywhere. It's not our safe haven, it's not a place to hide from the rules, it's a place to grow and blossom into something completely different. Nebula has produced originals like Lindsay Ellis's Ballad of John and Yoko, which dives deep into the unintended consequences of the murder of John Lennon. It's a beautiful documentary exploring one of the strangest stories in modern music history. And they have even more interesting shows like the in-depth geopolitics show Modern Conflicts or Jet Lag, which is a travel game show where the players use the literal real world as their sandbox. It's a unique concept which is exciting and wouldn't be possible without Nebula. We're even producing movies this year. One of them is Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend. It's coming out in a few months and it got covered in Variety, one of the most popular entertainment magazines in the world. So Nebula is becoming the answer to the question, how do you make art or content that's as high quality and interesting as traditional media without the corruption and exploitation associated with that industry? I've always wanted to take my videos to the next level and make them more substantiated and more interesting than ever before, and Nebula is enabling that for our entire list of creators. Better stories, better production value, taking creators to the next level is what Nebula is all about, and it's only getting better as time goes on. So if you want to join a platform that's pushing entertainment forward, enabling us to make things we never could have made before, you can get access to exclusives like my Danger Music documentary and high-quality, thoughtful videos from hundreds of other creators like Adam Neely, Todd in the Shadows, Polyphonic, FD Signifier, Bobby Broccoli, and countless other storytellers. You should join Nebula today. So go check out my show Danger Music or Jet Lag or The Ballad of John and Yoko by going to nebula.tv/Volksgeist to get 40% off, because Nebula is only $30 per year when you use my code. Not only is it the most interesting video platform anywhere, it's also affordable. I even have a Nebula exclusive class breaking down my entire video production process from writing to graphics and more, which I think a lot of you would enjoy as well. It's not just any project, it's my project, and it's a project you don't want to miss out on. So go to nebula.tv/Volksgeist to get a year for just $30. That's $2.50 per month.